All right, guys, welcome back to the WRPF podcast. I'm your host, Alex Uslar, episode 25, quarter way to 100. I got a very special guest this week. I got my boy, Jawon Garrison. The reason why Jawon's a very special guest to me is because this is my athlete, right? This is my homie right here. It's just me and two friends just sitting down, having a chat. A lot of things I'm going to ask him, I already know, but I want you guys to get to know Jawon. Jawon's been flying under the radar for a very, very long time. We first met at the Hybrid Showdown, which was like one of his breakout meets back in 2020, I believe. And just seeing that boy doing wild things, smoking Newports out in the parking lot between all his attempts, and just all over the place. And I'm like, man, this guy's wild. Started following on Instagram, saw his training was even freaking wilder, and then that connected us. But we'll get there eventually.
Yeah.
A lot of things to talk about me and Jawon's history. His history in powerlifting, burst into the scenes. And then, of course, like you guys know, most of the guests that have been on for the last couple of weeks, getting ready for the American Pro, getting ready to do some damage. Jawon, welcome, bro.
What's up, man? Glad to be here.
Long-winded intros is what I do. I say so many things. All you got to do is be like, what's good? That's it, bro.
That's pretty dope.
Hell yeah, man. So let's get to know Jawon. Let's get to know when and where you burst in the powerlifting scene. You only started competing just a couple years back, right?
Yeah.
You were already in your 30s, pretty much, when you started competing.
Well, I was late 20s.
Okay, late 20s.
Late 20s. Yeah.
So talk to me about what was Jawon doing, Mr. Alabama, before he got into powerlifting.
Before I started competing, I was playing football, man. I was doing the semi-pro football. I had done it for 11 years. So I was doing that. I was a defensive back, and I was still training, but it wasn't any type of, well, in my eyes, it wasn't any type of powerlifting training. It was more so just working out just to stay in shape.
So take me as far back as you can remember, back in your teenage years, when you were playing football in high school and stuff like that, and where you are.
I did 1 year in high school, but way back, let's just say my sports background started with wrestling.
Okay.
Wrestling and track and field. And I did that in the 7th grade, pretty much all throughout high school, wrestling and track. So that's my background. I actually only played 1 year of football in high school. My main thing was track and wrestling.
So with track and wrestling, did they have you doing any type of weight training in high school or not really?
It was very minimal. It was more so conditioning back then. I didn't really get into like lifting weights. It was in high school, but it wasn't anything like heavy or anything. But I had always been somewhere in the lifting world. Like I started super early. Like my dad had me going to the gym with him when I was 12. So I tell people technically I've been lifting weights since I was 12.
Okay. So at what point throughout this history, you're 12, you're lifting weights a little with your dad, not in school, which is probably a better thing. Your dad was probably teaching you better than they would have in goddamn school. All right. So at any point were you doing some freaky shit that made you an outlier, or were you a smaller guy when you were wrestling and tracking and field and it was nothing crazy impressive?
No, I was a little dude. I think I was 135.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, 135. And then the most I got up to was like maybe like 150 in high school. So I always been a little guy, but like even in high school, I was strong for my size, if that make any sense. So they knew then I was stronger than normal for like a guy who weighed 140 pounds.
Fair. So how did this shift happen from being focused on two sports to then all of a sudden playing semi-pro football? What happened there after high school?
So the thing was, what happened? I always wanted to play football. I just didn't. I played, like I said, that 1 year in high school, I actually had an injury. So that's what kind of like ended that whole ordeal with football in high school. But afterwards, This guy I knew, he just hit me up and he was like, "Hey man, you want to play football?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he told me where the tryouts was gonna be at, and I was there. And that's really just how they got started. Football was like my first love, anyways. I just used to always play with my cousins and stuff like that growing up. But yeah, so that's where that came from. And but once I started playing, like I knew, like it was after high school, so I knew like that's something that I could do in the summertime, and leading up to the summertime, it'll give me a reason to work out, and I would just have something to do, something to occupy my time during the summer.
So at what point do you go from just playing it, you try out, till it comes to a semi-pro position? And what does a semi-pro even mean or look like?
Well, it's basically like recreational.
Okay.
So we're not getting paid,
Okay.
but it's still just like they got the different powerlifting federations. It's the same thing with recreational football. So you got some federations that's tougher than others, or other leagues that's tougher than others, but it's all like levels. So that's pretty much how that whole thing worked out. But like I said, we weren't getting paid or anything. It was just a bunch of grown men, basically out there just going at it. But it's a real deal. It's a real deal, though. It's a real deal.
All right, so
Yeah.
you're doing that pretty much. You get out of high school, you start doing that. And at what point did you start, like, were you lifting weights more seriously now at this point? Were you putting on weight? What did that look like training all throughout, kind of your 20s doing this? The better part of your entire 20s, right?
Yep, most definitely. I was the youngest on the team when I started, and I think I had just turned 18. And then I remember when I finished playing, I was probably like the second oldest guy on the team at the time. But so yeah, I did it pretty much most of my 20s. I was doing that. But yeah, I had gotten into training. And like I said, I didn't weigh much then. So that was another reason why I wanted to start training more, was to like try to get bigger. Cause some of those guys were pretty big and I played defense. So like I wasn't getting hit. I had to run into them and hit them. So I was trying to put on a little weight. It didn't work too well, but I did what I could do, though. I did what I could do. But that's what pretty much got me into training more seriously, more consistently, was when I was playing football, to keep me in shape, get stronger for that.
What did your training look like throughout this time? Was it kind of just like a normal gym bro split? Were you looking at different like resources online, or you just went in, you trained your legs, you trained your upper body, you just did whatever?
Yeah, I just went in and squatted, benched, and did some accessories. So that's it. I didn't deadlift. I didn't start deadlifting until I was 27, 26, 27.
Well, that's fucking funny because it's still pulling teeth to get you to do accessories.
Yes.
But why do you think that is? Why do you think it's most people, when they find the gym in their early 20s, whatever it is, in college, in high school, they're more drawn to the machines. They're more drawn to doing the accessories. They're more drawn to bodybuilding because everyone knows who the fuck Arnold is. Everyone knows, all that kind of shit. What do you think it was that was drawing you so much towards squatting and benching primarily as all your training?
I think it was because that's what I was doing in high school, just squatting and benching, and we did the hang cleans, but I didn't like those. I never liked them, so I never knew. I knew I wasn't gonna do them whenever I did start working out. But other than that, we was benching and we were squatting, and I remember being it was like the 1,000-pound club in high school or whatever. I had like the club t-shirts for your squat, bench, and we had power clean at the time. But yeah, I finally made it to the 1,000-pound club my senior year. So, but like I said, I knew I didn't like power clean or those hang cleans, but benching and squatting was two of the things that I liked doing in high school. So once I got to the gym, outside of that, that was primarily where my focus was on just benching and squatting. I wasn't doing too much accessory work, like I said, because it just seemed boring. I wasn't I didn't know that you needed to do certain things to strengthen other muscles that help your bigger muscles and all kind of stuff like that. But yeah, it was just bench squat and outside running.
Well, it's funny because that carried over a lot into your training when you started actually powerlifting, right?
Yeah.
So, at what point did you first hear about the word powerlifting and realize that it's something outside of just squatting and benching and doing that thing deadlifts that you don't like to do?
Yeah. I want to say it was maybe maybe a year, maybe a year or two before I actually did my first meet. There was a gym across the street from where I was working out. They had like I guess it was just like a powerlifting meet for just like the people that went to the gym or whatever. And so I actually went to that. And then I kind of got there was when I kind of got like my first taste of what it's like to lift in front of people. I was training at the gym, and the people there, they was like, "Hey man, you ought to do this." They having this event at the gym across the street, and I was like, "All right." I just showed up, and like it wasn't any type of like training for it or nothing. I just went in. I did bench, squat, and deadlift, and I think we used like the gym plates and stuff like that. It was just like a super local thing they had just for the gym, and it wasn't any kind of like judges or nothing like that. It was just, I'm assuming, just people that worked at the gym. But that was like my first taste of like the word powerlifting. That was my first time ever hearing about it. And I did it, and it was cool. But I didn't think after then that was what I wanted to do at that moment.
Do you remember what you hit at that little just mock competition kind of deal?
I think I might have squatted. I might have squatted like 500. Probably benched anywhere between like 365, 375. I can't remember what I deadlifted, but it was something low. It was something low. My deadlift's always been low.
Well, lower than your fucking squat, because we already know you're a freaky squat. In case you guys didn't know, Jawon's got the all-time world record squat in the 181 class, looking to bump it up more. So what I do on every podcast, which we're starting to slowly segue into this, I like to have the open powerlifting history up of the person who I'm talking and I'm interviewing, right? So the first competition we have from you on open powerlifting was July of 2017, right?
Correct.
So this thing that you did at that other gym, you said that was like a year, 2 years before?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you get that.
Yeah, I was still playing football then.
Okay, cool. So they just tell you need to come in, max out, hit as much as you can hit. You do that. You realize it's kind of a thing, but it doesn't really irk your interest or like motivate you enough to stop doing what you're doing, right? So what happened next?
So what happened next was that was around year 9 or 10 for me playing ball. And then I knew around year 9 or 10 that I was starting to get a little burnt out. And I was like, well, I need to find something else to do because I don't have nothing to do.
Crazy it took 9 or 10 years to get burnt out. That's just wild, but all right.
Yeah. So I started to get burnt out, man. So I want to say it was a year later, about a year and a half later, I was in a different gym, and I think the same guys was there though. But they basically was telling me that I needed to get into powerlifting, because by then, like, my numbers then increased even more, after a year and a half of basically doing a bodybuilding type style of lifting, but with heavier weights because I was doing now I think about it, it's probably at the time it was probably like 80+% for like sets of like 8, 9, 10 and just going ham. But I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew I could do it. But they told me, they was like, hey man, you need to get into powerlifting, try it out. So I knew then, like I said, I was getting tired of playing football. I get to my last year and I say to myself, if we lose in the playoffs, then it's my last year playing. If we had won the championship, I might have came back and did another year. But I said, if we lose in the playoffs this year, this is gonna be it for me, and I'm gonna start powerlifting. So we lost in the second round, and then I knew then football career was over with, and it was time to move on to do something else. So after that happened, by this time I had then already started looking up the other lifters that I might be seeing if I competed. At that time, Michael Marino was like one of the big dogs around the weight that I was. Him and Ross Petkoff.
Both of them who are very, very active on social media. This is the time about the U.S. Open and stuff like that. Yep.
Yeah, man. So those were like the top guys in that class. And then it was like Russ and John Hack and Brett Gibbs in the weight class that I'm in now. So I didn't know if I was going to be a 165 guy or 181 because I weighed at the time I started competing, I was like 174, 173. So I didn't know which way I was going to go yet.
So you start finding these guys, you start realizing these names, you start looking at numbers. You're right away kind of analyzing it, right? Because when you did football, you went in hard, you wanted to be the best, you wanted to win these championships. So right off the bat, you already got your eyes set on these guys and knowing what you got to beat, huh?
Yeah. So I'm on YouTube.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm on YouTube looking at all these guys because I didn't have an Instagram then. So I just seen them on YouTube and yeah, man, I was looking at the numbers and I was like, wow. I was like, I don't see how these guys doing that because I wasn't nowhere near that. And well, my deadlift wasn't. But I ain't gonna talk about Hack because he was doing stuff when I first started watching him. I was like, ain't no way. I was like, ain't no way. So I put him over there and I put everybody else over here. And I was like, okay, well, I can do this. Well, if I train hard enough, I might be able to do that. So that's kind of how that went. Yeah, I was just scoping everybody out.
So what made you sign up and choose this first competition, and how long were you training? So the first competition, July 2017, right? So what was the lead up like that for? You find just something local and you're like, all right, let me do this with the actual rules and stuff, right?
Yeah. I knew it was a local meet. It was really close. I didn't have to drive far. I think I did like what month was that in?
July.
So I think I might have started my prep for that because I didn't even know how to prep. I think I might have started that in April or May. It might have been May. So and I didn't, like I said, I didn't know anything about prepping. All I knew was start light, end heavy, rest before the meet. So, and even my years into powerlifting, that's before I got a little more detailed into my training. That's what I did. I just started light with a lot of reps, ended with little reps, heavier weight, rest the week of the meet. Yeah.
So first competition, you go in, you hit a 550 squat, 407 bench, right? And a 578 deadlift.
Okay.
Hey, look, there you go. You deadlifted more than your squat, right? So deadlift started coming around, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
so go ahead.
Yeah. So I deadlifted more than I squatted, but I missed my third squat. So if if I had got my third squat, then my squat would have been higher than my deadlift.
Because if you look at the old powerlifting history, it really starts quickly turning it around. It's either matched or your squat starts surpassing your deadlift, right?
Yep.
So take me through, after that first competition, your next year or two of competing, right? Because you went and competed in 2018 again. You went on to compete at state championships, right? You did drug tested worlds. Take me through those different competitions and kind of your mindset, because each competition you got better. Your total increased, your dots increased. By your second competition, you already had a 515 dots. Very, very elite, right?
Yeah. So when I started, my whole thing was to get on the Team USA for the USPA. They had the Team USA, everybody get the shirts and do like the worlds or the tested worlds and stuff like that. So at the time when I started, that was like the best you could do, because that's just what I thought. So that was my goal when I started, was to one day make that USA team. So so after my first competition and my second, then I started working towards that. Started seeing like, how do you get on the team, and I found out you had to have like a high enough, what they was calling at the time, Wilks. You had to have a high enough Wilks score, and basically get selected out of the top Wilks. So that was my goal, and that was my goal to, like I said, get on that team. I want to say around, I can't remember exactly what meet it was, but it was the meet I had in Virginia, the drug tested Commonwealth Games. And that's another thing. I knew the quickest way for me to get on the team was to go through the drug tested way, because the guys was lifting in the non-tested world's team compared to me at the time. Like, I wasn't gonna be able to get there like as quick. So I started doing like the more tested meets and trying to. I knew that's how I wanted to get on the team. So I did the drug tested Commonwealth Games in Virginia, and I think that was the meet that ended up qualifying me for that team. But what happened was, somewhere somebody dropped out. Can't remember who it was, but I was obsessed back then, man. I was emailing Steve Dennison. I was emailing him like, hey man, how do I get on the team, and what do I got to do, and all kind of stuff like that. But yeah, somebody dropped out and they actually bumped me up. I was next. I had just missed the lineup, and then somebody dropped out and it bumped me up. So that's how I made the team that year. So I felt like that. I felt like I didn't accomplished everything I wanted to do once I
literally in your first year. Because funny enough, with that Commonwealth Games from your first competition was exactly 1 year apart, from July 2017 to July 2018. Boom, mission accomplished, right? Lifetime goal achieved on the world team. But it's funny because in retrospect, now you being an actual professional powerlifter, being one of the best in the world, you realize none of the best actually strive to be on those world teams of those other, federations or whatever it is. It's like you go to a pro level meet, you try to win $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, not just win a Team USA shirt and they pay for your flight to go compete, right?
Yeah.
So you get that spot. That spot is in November 2018, drug tested worlds. Was it everything you hoped and dreamed of when you got out there?
It was the best, man. I had the best time. That was my first,
right? And didn't you tell me that was like, for a meet, it was the first time you even traveled on an airplane or something?
That was my first time on the plane.
That's fucking wild, dude.
Yeah, first time on the plane to Vegas. And then so once I got on the team, I seen that there was this other guy who was actually in the same weight class as me, and his name was Dexter Jones. And I think Joe Sullivan coached him at the time. So I was, researching everybody. I looked up everybody, but I seen he was in my weight class and he was really strong too. And so it turns out, we both on the team. I met him. It's my first time meeting Joe Sullivan it's my first time meeting him. And me and Dexter, we became, really cool. Like I said, it was our first time meeting each other. We ended up going heads up at Tested Worlds. I think I won by 5 pounds. It was close. It was really close. He missed his last deadlift. So if he had got his deadlift, he would have won that meet. But yeah, I got mines. I ended up winning the weight class and best overall at that meet too in 2018.
So there you go, 2018. You literally achieve your goals. Yep. How did you figure out what was next from there? What did that bite you to keep going? Was like, let me just keep staying the same course, or where did it shift? Because you didn't make your pro circuit, as they say, debut till 2020, right?
2020,
showdown
right.
meet. So you're still you're competing along the way, right?
Yep.
So what time did your goals shift, or what were they now after that meet that you accomplished what you wanted to accomplish?
So after then, it's actually still what I do to this day. I'm not gonna say never, but my main thing was setting my personal goals and reaching those in competition. And it just so happened to be every time I set a goal and reached it, my Wilks score went up, but that's because the goals was going up. So that was my main thing. I mean, I think I can't remember exactly where I was competing before the showdown. But I don't think I did. If I traveled, it wasn't far. I think I was just trying to compete and like I said, just hit my goals. But once I started finding out about these bigger meets, I was like, hey, I want to do one, and finding out you had to have like a certain dots. They were still Wilks. You had to have a certain Wilks. And actually what happened was I had the Wilks score, but I wasn't getting any invites.
Right, because no one knew who the hell you were.
Nobody knew who I was.
Right.
So I had the score. I was qualified to go. I just wasn't getting any invites, so I didn't know like how to sign up for the meets. And I even remember I might have DM'd I think it was for the Kern. I DM'd somebody for the Kern meet. It might have been the Kern page. I can't remember. But I remember one year, and I want to say it was 2019. I think it was 2019. I had reached out to them and I was like, hey, can I compete in sleeve steel? And they was like, well, it's not a sleeved meet. Right. It's like it's a wraps meet. And I was like, well, do I qualify still? And technically my Wilks was still high enough with my sleeve total to do it. So I think I registered for that meet. I think I registered for the Kern. And I know I got my invite to it. I can't remember who I talked to, but it was somebody on Instagram. But I finally ended up getting an invitation to have my name on it and everything for that meet. I remember putting it on Facebook because I don't think I had, hold on, did I have it? I think I had an Instagram then. But yeah, I put it on Facebook or whatever. But I never did the meet. I can't remember why I didn't go.
I'm going to guess it might have been because COVID, because the 2020, because Kern was always in April. So it might have been April 2020 that you were supposed to do this, but COVID got it shut down.
It was before then.
Oh, it's 2019 then?
Yeah, it might have been 18. Okay. No, it couldn't have been 18. It was 19. It had to have been 2019. But yeah, I can't remember exactly why I didn't go. But yeah, so I just knew once I was able to go to these bigger meets, that's what I was, gonna try to do, just to get on like a bigger stage with the with the bigger names, because like most of the meets I was doing, they was like, nobody was there,
Right.
that I knew, that I knew of. It was just a bunch of local meets. And I was winning them, and it was easy. So I was like, I need to try to step out and find some more like competition, so that was the goal. That was the goal, to seek out bigger competition. I can't remember if it was anybody in my weight class that I was going to be competing with around that time. I think
What?
Hack.
I think
Hack
Hack was it was his last meets as a 181 around then.
He was on his way out, and I was like, thank God.
Crazy fucking story about John Hack. Not a lot of people know this. The first hybrid showdown was in December of 2017. Okay. And it was USPA sanctioned full power meet and then unsanctioned deadlift only portion. All the prize money was for deadlift only. We had Dan Green come out, Micah Marino come out, John Hack. We invited John Hack to come out. This motherfucker, I don't think a lot of people know this. It was so long ago. He competed. None of the pros that came out, they all came out for the deadlift only, right? Mm-hmm. He wanted to do the full power. He did the full power portion with just like, it was only like a 30 person meet with a bunch of amateurs. He did the full power portion, broke some all-time world records. It was an hour break. He deadlifted, right? Hour break, and then did the deadlift only portion again. So he did 6 maximal deadlifts, bro. And then I think he won the deadlift portion also. That's crazy sick. Motherfucker. But that was one of his last meets at 181. So that was like 2018. He maybe did a couple more in 2018, and then that was it.
Yeah. I want to say his last, I can't remember his last meet, but I remember when it was, what's the meet they did in, I think it was Texas, the Pioneer.
The tribute. Yeah, the tribute, which is
tribute.
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched that one. Yeah. But yeah, so that's how all that went out. I just wanted to go find some bigger competition. Cause I knew like when I get into a meet, like my mindset is always I have the me versus me mindset. So then, like I said, I got tired of doing that. I was like, well, shoot, I want to go against somebody or whatever. But in my weight class, like I said, it was Hack and it was a couple of other guys. But they wasn't signing up to the meet. I can't remember who else was. Malik Durstein, I think, was a 181 guy back then.
He was mainly raps, but he was a 181 guy. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember seeing his name up there. I remember seeing the guy's name that had the all-time world record squat, but that guy was from like Russia or something. His name was like Alex some Euclid. I can't remember his last name. I don't know, but he was somewhere overseas. But yeah, I just wanted to get out there and get some bigger competition.
So, okay, we tried for the U.S. Open, didn't work out. People still didn't know who the hell you were. Your first pro meet, your first pro debut is 2020, September, the showdown meet, right? After not competing all of 2020, COVID, all this fucking craziness, they moved the meet from Buffalo to the middle of nowhere, Kansas City. Yep. How did you get noticed for that? How did you get on that roster? Because that was your breakout meet, obviously, but you didn't have a big enough breakout before that.
Right. Man, I think I might have just had the total to go. I might have just had the whips to get into that meet. And I remember it did get moved from New York because I was supposed to go, and I was like, well, damn, this will be my first time going to New York because I still never been to New York. So that was gonna be my first time going there. And then when they moved it to Kansas City, I was like, I don't want to go there. I was like, I don't want to go there, but I was still happy that they was having the meet.
Right.
But yeah, so I don't know. I think I just qualified to go, man. And then like I didn't have any, like I knew I had some personal goals that I wanted to set. But to be honest with you, like my main thing, I was just ready to get out there to meet all these people that I had been watching on Instagram and Facebook and for the few years I had been competing. Like it was my first time meeting a lot of people, or seeing a lot of people, because I didn't talk to a lot of folks. I just looked at them and be like, oh, that's such and such, and that's such and such, or whatever. But it was really exciting. That time when I went to Kansas City. Yeah.
So, I mean, that meet was an absolute breakout meet for you. You had tons of great performances before that. You put up a 536 dots, but that meet, you get 8 for 9, almost go 9 for 9, 576 dots. I think you got one of the best lifters, right? Top 3, top 5, something like that?
Man, I just missed it.
Okay.
I just missed it. I had just missed it in that meet. I think all of the guys, I think Hack won it. And then the rest of the guys was like 275,
right,
242. They was all big guys. And then and I think I had just missed it by like just like maybe a couple of dots. Like I can't remember. It was point something. I had just missed it. Like for I think it was, might have been like 2 points or something. I can't remember.
Well, you know what's funny is because that meet was scored by Wilkes still.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because again, and same with the next meet you did after the hybrid showdown, because I'm looking at it right now. You had Dan Bell ahead of you, Zach Meyer, Shane Holler. But if it would have been scored by dots, you would have been second place because the way that the formula kind of shifts and changes. But still, I know it was a huge, massive breakout performance for you because I watched that meet. I saw that meet. I'm like, who the hell is this guy? I started following you on Instagram. And shortly after that is when I sent you personally or from one of the hybrid pages an invite for the hybrid showdown, right? You'd gotten noticed. Now you got an invite to another one of the biggest meets, the Hybrid Showdown 3, which was in 2021, right?
Right.
So take me through the kind of that transition after that meet, after that amazing performance, now keeping it up and still progressing into another meet just 5 months later.
Yeah. After that meet, after the showdown meet, I had got like a bunch of more followers. Well, I ain't gonna say a bunch, but to me it was a bunch. And whenever I get on Instagram and see 10 people follow me or 20 people, like that's a lot to me. But yeah, that was just it was my breakout meet. It was my first time. Like I remember seeing like they would have like I had like a video person, the guy who was doing the artwork for people. You know what I'm talking about?
I know
like,
Liam or whatever.
Yeah. He did something for me.
Drawing,
Yeah, that was my first time having all this kind of stuff going on. So like you said, that was like my breakout meet in 2020. Going into hybrid, same thing, man. I just knew I wanted to improve. I knew I missed my third deadlift at the showdown. It was like 699. So I knew going into hybrid, that was the goal, was to pull that at the hybrid meet. As far as the benching and squatting go, hybrid. Was that the year? That was when me and Micah had the little thing going on, I think, at the hybrid meet.
Yes. Micah too. Yeah. Back and forth using a total more and shit. Yeah. I remember seeing it on social media. Yeah. And again, it helped get more traction for your name. You guys having this kind of little friendly back and forth. Yep.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. That was real fun too. I enjoyed that. Yeah, me and him doing a little trash talking and stuff like that. But yeah, it was all love though. We knew that. But yeah, so I knew that was going to be a really important meet. That was one reason that gave me extra motivation to try to beat this guy because I knew he was going to be in wraps. Still. So I was like, okay, like I got to come with it. You know, I don't want to lose or whatever. So, so that was something that motivated me to, you know, stay on my shit with training and like I said, pretty much kept me motivated throughout the whole thing because that was the theme, me versus Micah at the hybrid meet. So that was my motivator for that. Once I got there, Whew, yeah, it was tough meat, man. It was tough. Yeah, I went 3 for 3 on my squats. Um, bench almost shit the bed on bench.
Right.
Almost shit the bed on bench, man. I remember I think I opened at like 457, went straight from 457 to 507 on my for my second attempt, and I can't remember exactly why I did it. I can't remember why I did it.
PR, I guess, because that would have chipped your PR from your previous meet. So you're like,
That's
it's
it.
PR, right? But you take
Yep,
this
that
huge jump that would have destroyed your total. And I remember seeing the second attempt, like, wasn't even really close. And then you
yeah.
came back for the grinder of the century and got that 507 and got that PR. And then went 3 for 3 on deadlifts, made that missed deadlift, secured a huge total PR, and just barely missed a 600 dots, right?
Yep.
So,
Yep.
another near damn perfect performance.
Yeah, close. Yeah, and I knew I had a lot riding on that bench too. If I had missed that third attempt, I don't place at the meet. I done wasted all this money coming to Miami.
Right.
Like it would have been a whole shit show. Yeah, it would have been a long ride home. So I had a lot riding on that. I was just talking to I think I posted that bench in my store the other week. It was like last week before last. And I was telling Shane, like to this day, that's still the most clutch lift I've ever hit in a meet. That third attempt bench at the hybrid. Yeah, that was serious.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So after that hybrid, now we're going to kind of start rolling through the last couple of years of history, right? So shortly after that is when you and I started chatting. I'm following you on Instagram. You're growing on social media. And I believe you were preparing for the next show. You were going to get ready for the next showdown, the second showdown meet, right?
Yes.
And
yes.
I remember seeing you. You're like, 9-10 weeks out and missing lifts way underneath your maxes and stuff. And that's where you and I start connecting because you were able to get to a very high level at a pretty fast pace. But everyone knows, like, even though, you're an older guy, you've been lifting a long time for powerlifting, you were still getting those newbie gains. Things were just flowing, right?
Yeah.
And you can train crazy and just max out all the time till it just starts catching up. I remember one of the first conversations I had with you when it came to coaching stuff. I'm like, all right, so how do you train? You're like, I usually go in and I'll hit like a single or a double. Sometimes it'll be like a single at 600 pounds on squat. Sometimes it'll be a single at 700 pounds. I don't know. Sometimes I'll miss it. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, shit, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're 10 weeks out. Like, we're not taking those gradual steps to get where we were because you had made so much progress. You're able to do that for a certain period of time. But now when you get also more competitions back to back to back that you're trying to do, you're like, how do I get up to that? Right. So that's where we first connected, but also where some of your first injuries were coming into play.
Yeah, man. I was when we got together, man, I was banged up all the time, like from training. And it wouldn't be like it wasn't when I was training, it was just after training. It's like the day-to-day lifestyle. I was always hurting, always aching. And at the time I didn't know I was overtraining, but that's what I was doing on a consistent basis. And that's one of the things that led me into getting a coach. I told myself, I felt like I had gotten to a point to where I was getting to that top end that I was going to be able to get to on my own, and without getting injured. So I knew, I was like, okay, well, maybe I need to get a coach and prolong my career. Because if I hadn't have gotten with you, then I wouldn't be in this chair right now. Literally, I wouldn't be here. Because I was headed on the downside.
Yeah, man, we were definitely able to, I feel like, cumulatively work well together, communicate well together, analyze what you were doing, know what works for you. And just like anyone, there's ups and downs. And, through then you're at this high level history, right? We start preparing for the Ghost Clash. perfect prep, but pec is healing up, but then the back thing flares up, and that's the constant struggle, right? But how you can come back from it is what matters, right? So for Ghost Clash in 2022, just a year and a half ago, the back's not good. Take an attempt, almost get an all-time world record bench, right?
Yeah.
Back gets healthy, start pushing the squat. Pec gets a little bit weird. We're able to get an all-time world record squat, right?
Yeah.
But again, now we're kind of just snowballing through this last year and a half of what we've done, right? Because it's been amazing performance after amazing performance, even when you're not completely healthy. Still winning, still getting prize money along the way, jumping into some small different meets, and placing in them and having some fun with it. But obviously, American Pro last year, being able to hit an all-time world record squat, right? Breaking over 600-pound dots and winning some money with it. Yeah. And that's considering that performance. A lot of people don't know this. You can look at the open powerlifting history and see his bench wasn't 100%, right? Pec was coming off a pec injury. Still managed to PR the total, right? Win some money. So now we've had a long year off, and here we are in present day.
Yeah.
So we don't want to let on too much and tell everyone all the crazy shit that we got planned. But that's why I'm very excited for you guys to hear this episode. Just listen to Jawon talk, because we're gonna do some crazy shit. You never know. John Hack is the unbeatable person, but anything can happen on any given day.
Yeah. My mindset. I just need to make it there. Once I get there, I get there, then it's a different story. But I'm just
3 or 4 more training sessions to go. You know what I mean? That's it.
Yeah.
So again, guys, we're not going to let you on, because you guys have heard all these different episodes where I've asked the people I'm interviewing what are their goals for the American Pro. I'm going to make the decision and say we're not telling you guys the goal. All right. But I best believe multiple all-time world records are going to be broken. And Jawon's going to leave a very nice legacy. And I think that we could safely say and announce, because you've already said this a couple of times on Instagram and stuff, this will be his retirement from the 181 class, right?
Correct.
That's right, man. So we do some damage, one final meet at 181, have some fun at what is one of the best meets ever put together. And I'm super excited to be there with you, bro.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting, man. It's going to be bittersweet. It's going to be an emotional one for sure.
It is. The one thing that I friggin' hate, it sucks, because Blake has said this is going to also be his last meet at 181. And he said he was going to go do it in sleeves, but he stayed in wraps, bro.
Yeah. I messaged him. I did message him. When I seen him squatting in wraps, I was like, hey, what you doing in wraps, man?
You switched, bro.
Yeah. But he told me what was going on. I was like, I respect that. But I'll see Blake later. I'll see Blake.
That's right, bro. You guys can meet at 198 next.
Yeah, I see him.
That's going to be fun, man. Hell yeah. So, I mean, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I hope we gave you some good history, find out some different things about Jawon. Again, we didn't want to let on too much about the American Pro, but just know we're 2.5 weeks away from us all being out there in Manassas, Virginia. It's going to be a good time. I'm excited to be there in your corner and sign us out, bro.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you there, man. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Everybody stay tuned. We're gonna do some good things in Manassas. So I just got to make it there. We'll get there.
Hell yeah, man. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we hope that you enjoyed this week's episode of the WRPF podcast.